Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's first English fluency guide, and I help people develop English fluency and speaking confidence in simple, easy steps. To become a successful speaker, you must develop all 7 of the essential English fluency habits. One of these habits is the ability to use conversational spoken English so you sound natural like a native English speaker and not like a robot. So in this video, we'll look at 10 phrasal verbs that will help you sound much more natural. Use these instead. The first one is to sum up. Typically, people will say in summary, which is something that's perfectly fine to use, but to sum up is much more casual and conversational. If you're giving an example and saying maybe I have 1, 2, or 3 things that someone needs to do, like I'm giving a business presentation, and I want to say, well, at the end of this presentation, in summary, you should do this, or in summary, here's my conclusion. But I can just say more casually and conversationally, whether I'm in a business situation or in a casual, friendly situation, to sum up. So let's say I'm even just on a trail hiking with some friends of mine. And I say, okay guys, we're going to go here and here and here. So to sum up, we're going to take a 3-hour hike and visit 3 different destinations. To sum up. Listen carefully to how this blends. Sum up. Sum up. To sum up. To sum up. Next, to catch on. To catch on. To catch on is the same thing as saying become popular. Typically, people will talk about something becoming popular, like maybe a new business model or a new kind of food. Some kind of food is catching on. Becoming popular is perfectly fine English that you can use, but you will sound much more natural and conversational if you can say that something is catching on. To catch on. Listen carefully again to how this blends. To catch on. I've noticed that a new mobile game is catching on with kids lately. Catch on. Catch on. Next, you can talk about dealing with something. To deal with. To deal with. Whenever you have a problem and maybe you're trying to solve that problem, or it's something that really you can't solve and you just have to wait for the end of that thing to happen, you are dealing with that problem. So a typical, more advanced way of expressing this in, again, conversational English, people do use this as well, is to endure. So if you are enduring something, it just means you have to solve that problem or wait for something. Like you're enduring a rainstorm because you're out golfing and you really want to play, but now you have to wait for the rain to pass. So you're enduring something. But you can talk about dealing with it as opposed to saying endure if you want to sound much more casual and conversational. So if someone contacts you and you want to say you're busy because you have another thing that you're dealing with at the moment, you can use deal with. So I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. I have to deal with another problem. I have to deal with another problem. To deal with. Next, in a similar way, you can talk about figuring something out. To figure out. To figure out. To figure out is another great phrasal verb, and this just means to solve something or try to understand a problem. Typically, you will have something, and again, you can use to solve a problem. Maybe we are in a business meeting and people will talk about, well, there's a problem we have to solve, or in a more casual and conversational way, you can say, well, this is something we must figure out. Figure out. So I'm having a problem at work and we don't really know how to figure it out. So we are trying to figure out the problem, or again, we're trying to find the solution or to solve something, but more casually and conversationally, to figure something out. To figure out. Next, to get away with. To get away with. Listen carefully to how this blends. Get away with. Get away with. Get away with. Get away with. When you get away with something, you're cheating or tricking the system in some way. So maybe you are taking a test and the other students in your class have actually studied and they're doing well, and you're sitting and taking the test, but you're using a little note that tells you all of the answers. And if the teacher does not catch you, then you get away with cheating. So you can get away with, if you think physically about a person that's maybe walking with something, and then they leave an area they are trying to get away with. So they are leaving with something. So in this case, they're leaving with a good score. So you can always take a physical idea from a phrasal verb and take it to a more figurative idea of, in the case like this, to cheat on something, to get away with. Next is to bring up. To bring up. When you bring something up, you're introducing or mentioning something typically in a conversation. Like a friend of mine brought up an idea about how we can market something at the business meeting. But if you think about the physical origin of this, think about yourself maybe standing in an ocean and you put your hand down under the water to bring up something that's under the water. So maybe something is sitting on the bottom of the ocean and you pick it up, you are bringing something up. I brought up an interesting point at the meeting today. I brought up an interesting point at the meeting today. Next, to give up. And listen carefully to how this blends. To give up, to give up, to give up. When you give up, it just means you quit. And again, it's perfectly fine to say that you're quitting when maybe you don't want to play a game anymore, like you're in the middle of playing a game of Monopoly or a game of soccer and you're losing very badly. You can just say, okay, I give up. I give up. And again, it just means that you're quitting something, you don't want to do it anymore. And you can give up anything. Maybe you could give up in a business situation, you could give up trying to acquire another company, or you could give up a particular business venture or even a particular strategy maybe that you're trying to do for your company. But you could give up and just say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. So we're going to stop doing this thing and maybe find something else. So it's the same thing as saying to quit, but again, it sounds much more native and conversational. To give up. To give up. Next, to put off. To put off. Listen carefully again to how this blends because the T becomes more of a D sound. Put off. Put off. Put off. When you put something off, it means you're delaying that thing. If you think about physically taking something in your hand that's sitting on a table and moving it to another location, you're putting it off to the side or putting it off in a different place. In the same way, maybe you're doing your homework and you're feeling lazy, you don't want to do it, so you're going to put off your homework or put something off for another day. So maybe we have a picnic, we're going to put it off, we're going to delay that thing and have it at another time, to put something off. So you always have to come back to that thing. Again, it's maybe something you would do if you're procrastinating, which means that you're waiting, you don't want to do something now, typically something you don't want to do like your homework or your taxes or exercising or whatever, but you will come back and do that thing later. So you're putting it off until another time, to put off. Next, if you want to talk about canceling something, this is to call something off. We called off the meeting, we called off the appointment, we called off any situation where we decided just not to have it. So if you put something off, it means, again, you're delaying that activity until another time. But if you want to call something off, this means that you're deciding to cancel it. So maybe you thought you were going to have a meeting, but it was called off because of weather, or maybe the sporting event was called off due to a thunderstorm. So again, instead of delaying it, you're canceling it completely. To call something off. To call something off. And finally, just a fun one I thought I would throw in here, and this is to make out. To make out. People will typically talk about making out with someone. Maybe you're kissing that person, but it's very passionate, and maybe you're touching a little bit more than just kissing, or maybe even a lot more depending on the person. But this is instead of using the word kiss. So if you want to talk with your friends and say, "Oh, I kissed somebody," this is instead talking about making out. So you're really talking about the same thing as kissing, but this is a way that native speakers would actually describe it. I made out with someone. I was making out with someone. Well, that's the end of this lesson. I hope you have enjoyed it. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the EnglishAnyone.com YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we release new videos. Finally, watch this important video to learn about all 7 of the essential English fluency habits, or click on the link in this video, or on the link in the description below this video to take our free English fluency quiz. It will tell you exactly what to do right now to start seeing real improvement in your English fluency and speaking confidence today.